what we were doing was so over the top, and everybody kind of, you know, especially the vocals, nobody got the vocals, you know what I'm saying? So, but we didn't care. It was something we enjoyed doing, you know, and that's when our drummer broke his ankle. You know, he broke it in like 3 places. So he needed surgery. He's got like a metal rod in his leg. He's got a plate on his ankle. He's got a bunch of screws holding everything together. So, well, Bill, unfortunately, like I said, had to step out for personal reasons. You know, he had a rough year, him and his girl at home. They had a lot of things going on, and it was harder for him to go on the road for extended periods of time. I was a good kid, you know. I did good in school. I was into sports earlier on, but I was always into music. You know, I was always into all kinds of music. You know, I was into the early rock and roll stuff back when I was younger, Pink Floyd, Queen, stuff like that. So yeah, I guess right around that time, I don't know, early teens, I made that transition from like, you know, being into sports to getting into music, you know. But I was into all kinds of stuff like soundtracks, movie soundtracks. I was into the horror movie thing at one point. So I went through all those phases, you know. But music seemed to always be a consistent, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't always heavier stuff, obviously, but yeah. And I grew up in a single parent household. My mom raised me, you know, with a little help from my aunt and uncle and, you know, my grandparents. So, you know, and I guess around 12, 13, you know, I met Will from Mortician. And we were good friends back then. We were, you know, we kind of got into a lot of the heavier music together, you know, growing up around that time. So we would hang out, go to the local arcade, and, you know, and then go to the music store and, you know, just buy records, you know, looking at, based on the covers, you know. You'd walk in and you'd see something like, you know, Voivod, you know, War and Pain, or whatever it was at the time. Like, wow, what the hell is this? And you'd grab it and check it out. And then eventually I met Bob, and the other guys through Andrew Sakowicz, who was the bassist vocalist of Rigor Mortis. So that's how I kind of got in with those guys, you know. So Maiden was like my proper introduction into metal, you know. And you know, when I was younger, I saw like the first album cover, you know, and then I saw Killers, and I was always like, wow, what is that? I wonder what these guys sound like, you know. So, you know, I think the first Maiden album I picked up was probably Number of the Beast, maybe. It was Number of the Beast or Made in Japan, one of those. Yeah, and that was my first, you know, introduction into metal, you know. And there were a couple of guys in school who, you know, I knew one guy had like the first Maiden cover on his jacket, you know, because denim jackets were huge back then with the you know, the proper acrylic paintings, and they were always mint looking. So many people back in our neck of the woods, from Yonkers to Bronx, it all had painted jackets. So as a kid, I was always like, really like, wow, those are sick, you know? But you always see the different bands, like, I wonder what these guys sound like. So Maiden was my proper introduction into metal. Harris was the guy who got me into playing bass. I mean, he was the guy who helped me understand, like, you know, the bass's role in this kind of music, because obviously the Maiden production was real bass heavy, so you always knew what Harris was doing, you know, the licks, all the stuff he was doing was very prominent in their mixes. So I had a good friend, Francis at the time, who was, you know, playing bass. You know, he wasn't a pro or anything, but he was much better than me. And I would go over to his house, and he would sit down and say, hey, let me show you something. He's like, try it, you could do it. So I'd sit there and he'd show me how to do it, and we'd learn like different little parts from Maiden songs. And so that's really how I kind of understood, you know, like I said, the bass's role in this kind of music, and Maiden was perfect for that. I think we were always realistic though from day one. We didn't have any like crazy expectations. Like, we knew what we were doing at the time was reaching a very small group of people. I mean, okay, when we first started listening to this music and we got, you know, heavier and heavier with our tastes, and then we started the band, we had really just been introduced into the underground scene, you know, the tape trading scene and the fanzines. So that was that was eye-opening for us, because at that point we realized, wow, you know, there's people all around the world, because we started getting mail from every corner of the world, you know. So we knew there were fans out there, you know, but we knew it wasn't something that was mainstream, you know. What we were doing was so over the top, and everybody kind of, you know, especially the vocals, nobody got the vocals, you know what I'm saying? So But we didn't care. It was something we enjoyed doing, you know. It was never about, you know, getting a record deal or any of that nonsense. We just really enjoyed the music. So to be able to get together with your buddies and create something, you know, that was dark and heavy and different, you know, and going into it, I think we understood that, you know, this is something we would have to always balance with, you know, reality, with jobs and stuff like that. You know, we never thought, and we still, you know, don't think this is ever going to be like, you know, something that we're going to live off of, you know. 29 years in and we're finally, you know, able to, you know, make money and do okay. But, you know, that's a long time to kind of wait for that, you know. So, but yeah, it's always been a juggling act, a balancing act for us to kind of balance those two worlds. Atonement was unique because I'd say since excluding the second record, which took 5 years, most of the writing process for each record has been about 5 months maybe from start to finish. So in other words, we'll say, okay, we got to get this record going. Let's book the studio time. We'll book it like 4 or 5 months out, and Bob will start writing the music, and once the music's done, we'll start penning the lyrics, and then we get in the studio and do it. It was about a 5-month cycle, more or less. So we started writing, and we had 3 songs done by probably around May, because I remember I was at Maryland and, you know, talking to people saying, yeah, we got 3 songs, we're going to probably go in the studio fall, you know. But then, you know, Bob kind of hit a wall creatively. So, you know, what are you going to do? When that happens, you just kind of step away from it and just hope you get re-inspired again, you know. So he took some time off, and at that time we were actually playing in Gospel of the Witches with Karen Crisis. We were doing that. So we had that to kind of focus on as well. So that was awesome for us too, because we loved that record. We loved working with Karen and Davide. So once he got re-inspired, he jumped back in and he started writing again. And that's when our drummer broke his ankle. You know, he broke it in like 3 places. So he needed surgery. He's got like a metal rod in his leg. He's got a plate on his ankle. He's got a bunch of screws holding everything together. So in retrospect now, that was probably a positive for the writing, because then, you know, we weren't stressed, we weren't rushed, we took our time, and we were able to really, you know, listen to the songs and tweak them and, you know, and really absorb them. And Steve had time to absorb them too, you know. Typically with Steve, he doesn't really have that time, you know, and that's our fault, because, you know, we're usually writing right up to the date we go in the studio. So he's, you know, sometimes, you know, his biggest challenge is really adding his influence into these songs, you know, in a short amount of time. You know, sometimes in the last week he's getting a song or 2. So not only does he have to learn them, he has to infuse his element and kind of, you know, his creativity into the song. So with this one, he had the time, you know, even though he couldn't use his ankle, he was still able to, you know, absorb the songs. He was still had his hands, so he could still kind of, you know, do that. So this time he was really able to, you know, just completely go balls out and really shine with this one, and I think he killed it on this one. Well, Bill, unfortunately, like I said, had to step out for personal reasons. You know, he had a rough year, him and his girl at home. They had a lot of things going on, and it was harder for him to go on the road for extended periods of time. And you know, unfortunately, you know, well, fortunately for the band, unfortunately for him, from May until like October was like extremely busy for us. We were hardly home, you know. So it was a real challenge for him. And we understood his situation, you know, because it had been, you know, ongoing for at least a year. Moving forward from there, you know, he told us he wanted to step out. We were like, no worries, man, we completely understand. You got to take care of business, you know, and you know, I think it was important for him, you know, to hear that from us, you know, that we didn't give him any flack, you know. So we told him that we were thinking about Alex Books, you know, because Alex now has been a friend of ours for 29 years, since the very beginning. You know, we met Alex in the early days of Agoraphobia, when we played down in Philly with Agoraphobia, and he's been a really close friend of ours from the beginning, throughout this entire, you know, journey. So we said, you know, let's ask Alex, because, you know, he would be the guy, you know, just personality-wise, talent-wise, and he's a friend. So, you know, we got the thumbs up from Bill, you know, so that made it even, you know, more perfect. So not only is he a friend, but he's a huge fan. He always has been, like, hugely supportive of Immolation, you know, and he loves the band. So, yeah, so it must be kind of cool for him to jump into a situation where he knows, like, he's jumping in with, like, you know, you know, good guys who are kind of level-headed, and you know, and he likes the music, so that's always a plus.
Next topic would be sex.
What?